Could the Texas border battle spark a civil war in the United States of America?
Now to the standoff between the federal government and the state of Texas at the southern border. The Biden administration is demanding that Texas allow Border Patrol agents full access to a crossing point in the border town of Eagle Pass and is currently being blocked by the Texas National Guard.
This is Shelby Park on the Rio Grande. It is now the new battleground between the state of Texas and the federal government. But it didn't always look like this. Now it's fenced in, surrounded by miles of razor wire, just like this. And there's armed Texas National Guard on standby.
We have new video tonight that shows the Texas National Guard installing more razor wire at the border right at Eagle Pass. Now that's despite Monday's Supreme Court ruling, which allows federal Border Patrol agents to remove it. Governor Abbott posted on social media claiming the border crisis constitutes an invasion, and he's invoking Texas's constitutional right to defend and protect itself.
Former President Donald Trump has put himself right in the middle of Governor Greg Abbott's battle with the White House over border security. On Thursday, Trump asked for all willing governors to send their National Guard troops to help send migrants back across the border. It comes as Governor Greg Abbott and the White House continue fighting over razor wire along the border in Eagle Pass. The Supreme Court has ordered the wire's removal, but Texas troops are still putting it up. Governor Abbott is standing firm against the Supreme Court ruling, criticizing President Joe Biden for not enforcing immigration laws.
Look, the border is at the boiling point, and I think you're seeing a movement across the nation now. Governor Abbott, supported by 25 other governors. This is a constitutional standoff. Texas has the right to repel an invasion if the Biden administration fails, which they have failed miserably. This is a constitutional right in the guarantee clause that Texas has the right to repel the invasion. Governor Abbott is exactly right. And I think the governors will prevail in this because you cannot nationalize 25 states' National Guards if we all band together and do this together.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott refusing to give up control of the Texas border to federal officials, saying the state will not give federal agents full access to Shelby Park today. That ignores a deadline set by the Biden administration, which is today. Instead, Abbott is installing more razor wire following a Supreme Court order allowing federal agents to start removing it. Texas now receiving support from 25 Republican governors, all backing Governor Abbott's border actions, blaming the Biden administration for the crisis. Former President Trump wants to take it one step further. He's now encouraging these states to deploy their National Guard troops to Texas to prevent illegal crossings. Trump's vowing that if he becomes president again, he's going to work with Abbott to seal the border, writing, quote, those Biden says let in those should not get comfortable because they will be going home.
As you know, the southern border is in full meltdown. We are under invasion by many, many countries. December was the worst border month in American history by far. Over 300,000 illegal aliens were apprehended infiltrating across our border in a single month. Think of that. And sadly, that's a vast undercount of what the true scale of the catastrophe is. No country can survive the complete elimination of its borders and the uncontrolled mass migration of millions and millions of people from all over the world, from countries you've never even heard of. That's just one reason why this is the most important election in the history of our country. The only way this country regains its sovereignty and restores our border is if you get out and vote for a gentleman known as President Donald J. Trump. That's me.
Welcome back to the Furnished Mind. So former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev on Friday made an ominous warning that an even more destructive civil war may erupt in Texas due to the ongoing migrant crisis. So as U.S. authorities grapple with historically high levels of unauthorized migration from around the world, our border apparatus has been pushed into overdrive, drawing the concern of politicians, advocates, and law enforcement alike. Administration officials say that we face an unprecedented level of displaced people from across the Western Hemisphere who want to come into the United States. Certain experts have described these push factors as primarily driven by poor economic conditions in Central and South America, natural disasters fueled by climate change, as well as a general lack of security, according to Congressional Research Service. But the numbers are record-breaking. The Border Patrol made about 10,500 apprehensions along the southwest border just on Tuesday, according to two sources familiar with the data. Agents made roughly 10,600 migrant apprehensions along the southwest border on Wednesday. That was only a slight decline from Monday and still high. The Biden administration is a disaster. They're not telling the American people the wholehearted truth on what is going on right now. Now, some would probably wonder, why on earth would Biden allow our border to be completely decimated? Why would he allow such an influx of migrants and not do anything about it? Doesn't he care about the interests of the American people? And the answer is, unfortunately, no. Joe Biden does not. Joe Biden is not placing the American people first, and he's doing that on purpose. Joe Biden is an agent of our NGOs, including the World Economic Forum, and some other NGOs that have a blueprint that they need to implement on the worldwide scale, and that is a global government system. The reason why Donald Trump was so vehemently hated was because he was the one individual that stood in the way. He understood what was going on. He admitted publicly that there is a deep state, and he acknowledged the fact that we need to place America first. Now, some people take this idea of nationalism as some sort of insult, that we're radical racists, that we're xenophobes, we have a hatred of foreigners. All of that is as far from the truth as it can be. The reason why Trump was such a prominent president and influenced so many is because people saw what he was trying to do, and that's fight against the globalist agenda. Now, Biden is continuing what Obama started and what Hillary Clinton would have finished in 2016 if she would have won. Unfortunately, for the Democratic Party, they had to wait another 4 years, all the while making the 4-year administration of Trump as difficult as possible. They attacked it on all levels. It just seems that all of legacy media was against him, no matter what he did, no matter how idiotic they made themselves sound and look. They didn't care as long as it was enough to chip away at the legitimacy of Trump. But here we have it. We have a border crisis on our southern border. So former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev on Friday made an ominous warning that an even more destructive civil war may erupt in Texas due to an ongoing migrant crisis. The ex-leader and ally of current Russian President Vladimir Putin warned that it might be the result of America's total inability to cope with the migration crisis. On Wednesday, Abbott proclaimed the Lone Star State's right to self-defense supersedes any federal statutes to the contrary, just days after the U.S. Supreme Court sided with Biden, allowing U.S. Border Patrol agents to temporarily remove razor wire laid across the U.S.-Mexico border under Abbott's order. Now, one source said about 1,600 migrants were stopped at ports of entry and about 11,000 were apprehended on Monday. The numbers this week represent daily highs not seen since at least the early 2000s, according to one source. Over the past week, Border Patrol agents have made an average of 9,559 apprehensions per day, according to the internal U.S. Customs and Border Protection data, the CBP. So what is the goal? The goal is to see the United States of America burst at its seams. Now, if we are going to continue in this progressive direction in terms of healthcare policy, subsidizing every issue under the sun, that puts the taxpayers at the burden of those who enter our country illegally. So as long as we, the taxpayers, have to subsidize every social program, every healthcare reform, every educational reform, we're on the burden tax-wise, because we're legal citizens. But if somebody comes in the country illegally, they still receive the benefits, they just don't have to pay the taxes into the system. And the more migrants we allow to come into our nation, the more of the financial burden will be placed on the U.S. taxpayers. So when we complain about the cost of living is getting too high, it appears almost impossible to purchase a home, healthcare needs to be made affordable, it should be a human right. No, it shouldn't. You're not entitled to the labor of another, first and foremost. But these are all the repercussions of allowing a nation to subsidize illegal immigration. Every illegal migrant that steps foot and stays in this country is living a life that's covered by U.S. taxpayers. And the more and more we allow, the more we'll see our country slowly collapse. This benefits the global agenda because America is, unfortunately for them, the beacon of hope. We give this idea that the individual is what matters, and individual rights are inalienable. given to us by our Creator, God, rather than government, and they hate what we stand for. We're too powerful, we're too free, we have too much freedom of expression and speech. We have the right to peacefully protest. They do not like any of these things. And as long as America exists, we will be the light on the hill. We will be a beacon of hope for the rest of the world. They need to see America collapse because they understand that hope will die alongside the U.S. People will be more willing to serve a tyrannical leader, and they'll follow without question and without any sort of revolting. The cost of this is going to spread out through society, no question. Sam Schultz, a volunteer who works to provide basic necessities to the migrants once they arrive, recently told ABC News, "There's just no way that you can deal with an influx of people like this without being a cost to society." Representative Tony Gonzalez, a Republican whose district encompasses much of Texas's border with Mexico, told reporters on Wednesday that the system needed a significant boost in funding and resources, including ensuring national security, limit the spread of drugs, and provide more judges to rule on migrants, like those especially seeking asylum. Hospitals and holding facilities were full, he said. Emergency responders in the area only had a respite from responding to drowning victims because the water along the border had recently receded. He also said the increase in migrants was unfairly taxing key ports of entry that let numerous people travel back and forth from Mexico and the U.S. for work or commerce or to see family. For them to believe that none of this is happening is absolutely criminal. And the reason I say that is because I know they know this is happening. It plays into their plan. They need a global governing system and they do not want to wait. Now, they understand that if Texas decides to secede, let's say they go down that path, there's only one response, and that's going to be another American Civil War. But I do understand the precarious position that Governor Greg Abbott is in. You're trying to do what's best for your people in Texas, and you have a federal government that's working in the exact opposite direction that you're trying to move into. Everything that you're doing, they're undoing. Every step you take, they take a step in the opposite direction. Now, let's hope that this can be resolved, that Biden will back down and allow Governor Greg Abbott to handle this on a micro level because he understands even more what his people need than the federal government. Because every time the federal government gets involved, it gets sloppy, it gets messy, and they mess things up. And let's keep it real, Joe Biden has a high proclivity for destroying things and messing everything up. Even Barack Obama said it himself. So as of right now, it is a plausible outcome that we could see Texas try to secede if Biden continues to step on their toes. And if they secede from the United States of America, just know that it's basically guaranteed to be a civil war. Last but not least, if there is a civil war, just understand that's when we're going to see enemies of the United States enter into our nation and make war on our soil for the first time. If you think that they're not waiting on the sidelines to see a weak point in the United States of America and for them to attack when that is possible, you're not paying attention. We still have a lot of enemies. You still have Iraq funding a lot of terroristic activities on a global scale. And the moment we get involved in a civil war, a war with Palestine and Israel, with Yemen, potentially Syria, potentially China, resulting with them trying to annex Taiwan, with Ukraine and Russia, we can't be in 5 places at once and fight a civil war. The moment that happens, it's over. They're coming in and they're going to try to wipe us out. With that being said, what do you guys think is going on here? Let me know your thoughts. Is it possible for a civil war? Is it possible to see Texas secede from the U.S.? Do you think that will be even better for the U.S. if Texas decides to secede? But you guys let me know your thoughts down in the comments.